Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go over episode 13 of the Nier Automata anime. I'm so excited to see this show back, and the first episode was so good. We got some of the short stories animated, and that opening was beautiful. Also, I'll be going into some spoilers of the game, so that means potential spoilers for the show. So if you want to go into the show with fresh eyes, I don't recommend this video for you. But if you stuck around, let's get into it. The episode starts back at the bunker, and they're listening to the same old speech by the Council of Humanity. 2B looks over at 9S, and 9S smiles, but 2B doesn't have a reaction, which is honestly an interesting reaction that she had. And then the opening sequence starts, and wow, there is a lot to go over on this alone. First off, great song. Lisa has done a lot of anime over the years. Started off with Angel Beats, but at that time she was in a band called Girls Dead Monster. But she's well known for singing the opening for Sword Art Online, as well as Demon Slayer the first and second season, Fate Zero, and even My Hero Academia. Now getting back into this opening, it starts off with a bunch of units flying up what looks like a tower, and this tower is inside the tower. But once the lyrics start, you all of a sudden see the tower that appeared at the beginning of Route C, and then you see a silhouette of 9S, and then we see someone looking out a window and looking down at Earth. I am thinking this is the original 9S model, and he could be on the space station Labo. I'm not sure about this number 6 though, so if anyone has any ideas, let me know. But since we're seeing him, I'm curious on where this story is gonna go. Then we come across the aircraft carrier that I'm assuming was 2B's. It's a safe bet because it's the flooded city, and then it eventually shows 2B. You do eventually come across this aircraft carrier in the game as 9S, and he hears a message from 2B. And then it shows A2, and at first watching the opening, I thought it was outside the mall, but looking at it again, she has a different sword, and the background area, it looks more like the desert area, but it's still a significant scene for 2B since she left everything to A2 to protect the future. Then we see some aircraft units flying down to Earth. More than likely, these are the units that are heading down to Earth from the beginning of Route C. Then we get a beautiful animation of A2 cutting her hair. She cut her hair with 2B's sword as a testament to accepting her memories and her wishes. A2 said, "A tribute to the deceased, my doppelganger." Then we get a moment of 9S screaming into the sky, and this is similar to when he found 2B is killed by A2. And he snaps and runs after A2. Then you see the red girls for a second, and then a bunch of pods. Then once the chorus kicks in, we see a battle at the ending of Route C between A2 and 9S. In this moment, he's charging at A2 in obvious rage for killing 2B, which this opening animation for this fight scene is pretty damn cool. Then it goes to 9S running, and he ends up in a field of lunar tears, and he's running towards a door. Now, part of the significance with the lunar tears is in the game, he actually does leave 2B's sheath next to the recreated hut of Kinase. It's in a sense a resting spot for 2B because when A2 and 9S ask about where 2B's body is, the pods state that they don't know. He continues to run towards the door, and you can see it's 2B in the doorway. The door shuts, and then the opening does this cool transition animation showing different characters in 9S's life, such as the commander. I feel like this is a scene that could be the anime's version of when she tells 9S, "Now, what will you decide?" right at the end of Route B. But there's also a good chance that it could just be some random conversation that the two of them had. Then it shows Pascal and his villagers with their white flags when 9S and 2B first met them. Then we see Devila, and when you freeze it, you could see it's when they were helping 9S get into the tower. Devila throws 9S into the tower, and she's telling him, "I hope you don't regret this." Then it shows Operator 210, and as stern as she was towards 9S, she did have a soft side, and 9S did help her throughout the game on finding some human artifacts. She was ultimately important to him. Then it shows the sad moment for 2B when she was dying, and she's looking over her shoulder and notices 9S and goes, "Oh, nines." Then we get a scene of the two Goliath-type units fighting, and this is when Pascal takes over one of them to protect the kids in the factory when her and A2 were being attacked. Then we get a flashback moment where 2B and 9S are setting off their black boxes in episode 1. Then we see A2 and she's raising her hand up. This is when A2 hacks into 9S to try to save him from the virus that is infecting him, and then she takes out the tower. But in this specific moment, she states how she had no idea the world can be so beautiful. And I think she's talking to her friends number 4, 16, 21, and I would like to also thank the other resistant members, telling them that she's coming. And then the tower comes crashing down, and you just see A2 falling. But since this is the anime, I'm curious on how they're going to go about tying in ending C C, D, and E, but more than likely, this is just going to be its own separate timeline, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get something completely new. Like, for example, who knows? Maybe we'll finally get the epilogue that they've only shown in the concerts. Then we see 9S taking off his visor and walking into a field towards 2B, but then she disappears. Now, this isn't the same field from the first season's ending, but it is interesting to see the parallels. The ending was from 2B's point of view, and now it's 9S's. You see 2B running towards 9S, and then he disappears. Then it shows her all alone. So it's interesting to see how the first half of this series, we're seeing 2B's perspective a bit, and now this one we're going to see more of 9S's side. Then the episode shows we're back in the city ruins. 2B and 9S are walking around, and I noticed something with their conversation. It is the same conversation they're having when they first come down to the city ruins in the beginning of the game. In episode 2, we didn't get this dialogue because the story had slightly changed at that point, to where 2B and 9S were helping the resistance immediately when they land. So we're seeing a different moment from 9S and 2B's quote-unquote first time coming to the city. Then we see a bunch of machines walking down the street, and 2B states, "Let's go, Nines." Okay, that confirms it. This is another memory of 2B and 9S, reintroducing the city ruins, and then 2B calling him Nines. This tells me this was one of the times before she had to execute him. Then 2B jumps down and does her superhero landing just like in the beginning of the game in episode 1, and it's also the exact same introduction, which, yes, technically this is recycled animation, but animation's hard, so I'm not gonna judge. Also, I think it emphasizes the point of this is another memory of 2B and 9S in their never-ending cycle. They go through the same motions and end up in the same spot, unable to avoid their destiny. So I think this was all done on purpose. What do you guys think? Then we get some cool fight scenes with 2B and 9S while the transmission is playing from the Council of Humanity. 2B is using her large sword, Virtuous Treaty. She did use that sword to fight machines at the end of the first season. After the fight, 9S talks about how after this mission is done, he wonders when the next mission will be when they get to work together again. And 2B states, "Not sure, you'll have to check back with the bunker." He talks about how scanners types usually work alone, which you hear the same conversation in the game. Then they find the red-headed resistance member, and this mission is a side quest in the game. The girl in red asks for assistance to help find her friend. Her friend had gone missing, and when 9S agrees to help the girl, 9S asks for some clues, and the girl in red says that there are some clues in her old pod, but it's far away from here. 2B had an interesting reaction to the fact that the girl had a pod, and 9S calmly points out that the pods do not work with the resistance. They're usually just assigned to the Yorha. She talks about how there was a battle with a big machine life form, and the explosion caused her to have errors accessing her memories. 9S agrees to help her, and then the woman asks 2B if she ever met 2B before. 2B states no, but all of us look alike. In the game, she explains that the giant explosion in the city ruins from the Goliath machine messed with her memories, but she needs 2B and 9S assistance to help find her friend's killer. In the game, normally there is a pod next to the girl in red, and it has images of her killer, and the killer is wearing red. So it's interesting to see, even though the machine explosion in the game isn't playing out in the anime, it's still a valid situation because I'm sure the resistance has had multiple situations like this happen. 2B is quiet and 9S is trying to tease her, but when he continues to get the silent treatment from 2B, he asks her, "Are you jealous?" And 2B states that no, she is not. It's kind of cute to see 9S think how mad she is, and he starts looking up what humans gave to women when they were upset, and he comes across the idea of gifts as an apology. And just like normal, she's already walking away. The dialogue continues with 9S trying to make 2B happier, but you could tell she is more cold than usual. In the novel short story long, there's a story called Memory Thorn, and explains that 2B is agitated with herself for getting more and more memories with 9S. She then of course is more irritated because emotions are prohibited. Even 9S points out in the story that he feels that she says that more to herself than to 9S. She's trying to lock away her true feelings and not get attached to 9S. They come across the Yorha soldier that had been killed, and Pod begins to scan the other pod. And you see the same flashback scans like you do in the game. You see someone in a red coat killing her, and then the next image reveals the identity of the killer. Then all of a sudden she appears behind 2B and 9S. The girl in red begins to remember who she is and runs back outside. She explains that she is a Yorha Type E unit. She begins to explain what a Type E unit's role is, and 2B is standing behind 9S just listening. And you know, while 2B is just standing there, she's also reliving some of those memories of her missions as 2E. Type E units disguise themselves to get close to the traitors or the moles to take them out. Then the girl in red begins to spiral down. At this point, she's talking about how she's killed her friends and lovers over and over and over again. And when she falls off the the roof, she says, I can only pray for those android souls that I killed go to heaven. 9S tries to grab her to save her, and she says something to 9S while he falls. He tells 2B he wasn't able to save her, and he asks if she knew about the Type E units. And he says, you know what? Some things are better off not knowing. In the game, 2B is the one that actually tells him that. In that same short story in the novel, 2B would tell him stuff like that to distract him from looking any further. She would try her best to protect him. 9S states that there is a chance that a virus contaminated her, so she asks if he can check her. 2B says yes. Now, my question is, when did this potential happen? And why is 2B not questioning this? And then we're back on the bunker, and 9S is back in his room, and he's thinking about the Type E unit. She told him to be careful, and he thought about how 2B didn't even move to help her. He says the bunker is hiding something. Then we get to the hidden messages that are in that code. But along with the hidden code, you see a glimpse of the red girls. First report says, I'm looking back on the records from when the observation cram school elephants were not singularity. I think that's a bad translation because I'm not sure what that is. Then the second report says, the target falls into all branches and deceives the Empress intentions. The thing with translating these is you're going from hex to text, and I don't speak Japanese, so I have to translate Japanese to English. So it's not that surprising that something got lost in the translation, either from me typing all those codes or the Japanese to English translation. The second report sounds like it's 9S, who is the one who's deceiving the Empress, which the Empress would be 2B in this case. Then the scene cuts into, oh snap, it's the temple from Nier Replicant, which also means that we're getting into the short story Memory Cage. In Nier Replicant, this temple is when Nier, Vice, and Kaine have to go save the prince of the city of Facade. The local villagers had thousands of rules, and they could not go to the temple, so Nier, being the good guy that he is, offers to go help save their prince. 2B is looking over her orders, and then 9S comes running in. He asks about what is she reading, and she just says it's orders outside of this mission. This starts off the same as the short story. Then 9S is talking about how he doesn't understand why a combat model would be in charge of a scouting mission like this. She walks away, and then all of a sudden we see 9S raise his hand to her back like he's gonna hack her. She turns around and asks, what are you doing? And he says nothing. And looking at the layout of this temple is the same as Nier Replicant, which is a nice touch on the animator's part. They are not detecting any life forms from machines or androids, so 2B says let's continue exploring. They come across some of those boxes that were annoying puzzles that you had to figure out throughout Nier Replicant, and then they continue to explore, and I'm really surprised at the layout. It's the same as the game. And then you come across the room that is where in Nier Replicant you are fighting the boss and trying to save the prince from the giant monster. 2E gets ready to go in for the kill, but then stops when 9S is looking at old currency from the old world, just like how 9S had to stop his attack at 2B in front of the temple. 9S looks back at 2B and asks, is the scouting target really in this location? Then 2B gets a transmission and she says it's from command and they got the location wrong. And then when 9S flips the coin and the coin falls, you see another 9S head in the sand. Now obviously this was from another time that 2Es had to kill him. Short version of this story is 2B will usually get on missions with 9S, and this time she was concerned that when she got the mission, it was going to eventually turn into a mission where she would have to kill him. And unfortunately, it came true, which is why in the episode just now we see her making a fist while she's talking to 9S. This is normal and she was not okay with it. Can you imagine having to think about that all the time? I'm assigned to him. Does that mean I'm going to eventually have to kill him? For me, my anxiety would be through the roof. Now in the short story, her fight with 9S in this temple, 9S actually gets the upper hand and does hack into 2B. He sees her memories and some of her conversations that she's had with the commander, telling 2E he knows too much and he must be dealt with. He wonders since when is having knowledge such a bad thing? Clearly 9S hasn't looked too much into human history. Time and time again, history has proven that if you have knowledge or appear to have knowledge, you have a better chance of manipulating and then taking command over people. We've seen this through history, through dictators, corrupt politicians, etc., etc. But going back to the story in the novel, there is an attack barrier they put into E to protect her in case 9S was able to hack her, and when she came to, he was lying on the ground lifeless, so 2E then started basically destroying 9S piece by piece, which is what I think some of the remains are that we just saw. Now we're at the mall, and they're talking about how humans used to shop there like we've heard before, but then the topic gets brought up that no one can live alone. Then 9S makes his same joke that he did in episode 5 of 2B can't live without him. Then just like in the game, all of a sudden they're getting attacked by a machine life form. 2B goes in for the kill and the head rolls off. Then to my shock, the head head opens up and we get to see Emil. Just like in the game, 2B and 9S are quick to say, Emil looks strange. Let's kill it. And Emil runs away. Now in the anime, obviously you could see his mouth moved, but I'm wondering if that was more of a comedy thing, or if he comes back, are we just going to see his mouth move more often? 2E then goes for the kill on 9S, but he dodges it. Then the background music changes to Bipolar Nightmare, which is usually a song that's associated more with A2's theme in the game. And even at the orchestras and concerts that they have, when they play this song, they're referencing A2. But as 2E is now engaged, the song is the fighting background music. My theory on the song choice right now is the word bipolar can represent 2B or 2E. The word nightmare fits because they're in a never-ending spiral of life and death amongst the machines, but also in this case for 2E always having to kill 9S. It's their never-ending cycle. What are your guys' thoughts on this song choice? 2E states that she made a mistake and has activated Mode 2 to fight 9S, which is mentioned in the book. It is an anti-Yorha combat, which is actually used in Route C when the other Yorha members get infected and they have to turn that mode on so 2B can fight the infected. 2E goes in for the charge and she's really quick. Like she's got some Super Saiyan speed going, which is also similar to A2's attack style. 9S blocks her attack and she tells 9s not to resist. She doesn't want him to suffer. She cuts off his arm and explains that Type S models can't win against Type E models close range combat. He tries to hack in, but the barrier protects 2E. Then it shows a flashback of Commander talking to 2B about how 9S hacked into the server and got confidential files, so Commander asks 2E to take out 9S. And 2E is obviously frustrated with this order. Then we go back to 2B and 9S, and 2B states that no one can live alone. Not even Yorha. And then she says, I won't apologize. In the novel, this is stated the same way. She was trying not to have guilt for what she was about to do. 2B all of a sudden can't move, and 9S explains, you remember the woman with the red hood? He hacked her back then when he checked on her. He then pulls out his sword and says that there is no way a Type S can beat a Type E. And this is what happened in the memory cage story. Pod quickly comes through and saves 2E. Oh, come on. 9S, you didn't think about this? You didn't think that Pod would be helping 2E? That's really surprising, because ultimately he's betraying Yorha. And 9S goes in for the attack on 2E, and then she quickly recovers and attacks him at the same time. Now, I could not tell what song this was that was playing in this moment. I know they made some new songs for this anime, so if you guys know, let me know in the comments. And then we get an overview shot of 2B looking like she's going in slowly to grab 9S, and it looks like she's just in sadness and in pain. But then it turns into a screen as someone's watching this happen, and it zooms out and it shows multiple different 2E missions where she's had to kill 9S. There are multiple different locations. One you could see is the city ruins. Another one is a field of some sort. Then we get a moment where he's fallen off a cliff. Another one where she's using the Beast Lord large sword, and 9S is in 2 on the ground. Then we see another one where she's got a spear going through him. The one in the center I'm pretty sure is the Forest Kingdom. There's also a potential picture from Memory Thorn of the Stone Temple, which is described as the Lost Shrine from Nier Replicant, and it looks like it's the commander reviewing these different missions. And she finally says, it might come to an end, 2B. It then shows the ending of Route A and B and how the last episode ended. And then she says, and you too, number 2. And it shows the same scene we saw at the end of episode 12. Here, listen to Past Me call this out. It now shows A2 with her Type 40 large sword, and she's looking out the window. So with this timing and those Yorha right outside, I think they're there to hunt A2, or they're just there by luck like 2B and 9S when they first met her. Well, technically not the first time, but you know what I mean. Good to know that I was right. I'm pretty sure those Yorha were there for her since the commander was watching her. And then we get a cool scene of A2 grabbing her large Type 40 sword and throw it at Pod. A Type 40 combat sword is a state-of-the-art weapon issued only to the elite forces on the front lines. So obviously A2 was able to get this from one of her attackers. But this has me wondering, why did the commander say that? It might come to an end, 2B, and also for you too, number 2. You get a sense that not only 2B is tired of this endless cycle, but the commander is as well. Then we come to Operator 6-0 walking to the commander's room and holy cow, that's a butt. Was not expecting that. Wonder if Yoko Taro requested this. They continue to walk to the bridge and 6-0 is giving the commander a report. And when they get to the bridge, it opens up to show more of the Yorha units in their battle attire. The background music sounds like another new song that's made for the anime. I went through the original soundtrack and I'm not hearing anything that matches this. So if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments because I'm curious on what song this was. But then you hear the commander state, so let's the final battle begin. Then the episode ends with the title Reckless Bravery, which is ending V where 9S is hacking into the tower, but instead of hacking into the tower, he continues to help the twins fight. But unfortunately, even with 9S trying to help them, they all end up dying. Now, this episode I think was just memories that the commander was reviewing. I think we're still on the same, well, similar route to the game since it ended with all of them preparing to go into battle. Now we're at the ending credits, and it's a flower that's opening up, and it's covering 2B's eyes. Everyone is probably quick to say that this is a reference to Zero from Drakengard, which hasn't been proven otherwise, but I don't necessarily think that it is. Yoko Taro makes plenty of references to flowers in all his work. Look at just the founder of Yorha alone. His name is Zinnia. That's another flower. And then in the Grimoire Nier book, Yoko Taro is asked about the flowers. But the question that is being referenced is about the flower at ending E of Replicant. But even the creators, when they saw that flower, they thought of Zero as well. And Yoko Taro's answer to if they were related was, if Square Enix continues to give us the budget, I'm sure we'll be able to reveal more about that eventually. It's like those lotteries where you pull the string that's often found at the night stalls at festivals. There's a lot of bad luck, but if you keep drawing, you're bound to win at some point. Maybe he found his budget in this anime and he's going to tell us more about these flowers. We'll just have to wait and see. The Puppet Show also makes an appearance saying that they will continue to do shows based off of each ending of Nier Automata, which tells me we're at least getting 26 episodes of this series. And with that, that ends this episode. Let me know what you guys think of this episode. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for all the support, and I'll see you guys next time.